Over the years, Kenya has experienced devastating food shortages which have gone to claim many lives. And yet, according to the United Nations, 50% of food grown in sub-Saharan countries such as Kenya goes to waste annually due to poor infrastructure, lack of support services, and inefficient food systems.
And you can mbegu ni reject. Automatically ni reject.
Yes, ni sina sasa malicha kitu simepaki. Sinakuwa waste.
Moreover, urbanization and a rising middle class is fueling a demand for resource-intensive foods that deplete our agricultural resources and that still end up getting wasted. What can we do to increase the efficiency of our food systems while ensuring a food-secure nation? There is currently no precise or concrete data on the amount of food wasted in Kenya. But the fact is, a vast amount of food is being wasted or lost between the famine folk daily in this country, where about 10 million people are said to be suffering from food shortages. Hi, I'm Esther, and this is Project Green. So it's about lunch hour and I'm in a food establishment in the city, and what we want to see is just the amount of leftover food we'll manage to collect here by the end of this one meal time. So it's just after lunch hour and here is our leftover food. So my plan is actually to measure and see in terms of kilograms how much we've managed to collect. So let's check it out. That's about 6 kilograms of leftover food. So for a rough estimate, let's multiply 6 kilograms of leftover food by a conservative estimate of 100 eateries in Nairobi City. Multiply that by 30 for a monthly figure and then by 12 for the annual estimate. That's an estimated 200,000 kilograms or about 200 tons of leftover food thrown out by eateries in the city in one mealtime annually. Since 2008, Kenya has been facing severe food insecurity problems. A huge number of the population has no access to food in the right quantities or quality. And yet, despite this, a vast amount of food goes to waste daily across the country, from the household to corporate level. For instance, we managed to capture images of the disposal of leftover food from airlines. The National Airport Services also disposes of uneaten airline food if flights are cancelled or rescheduled, or if the food temperatures are higher than the required levels. This food is chartered down into trash lorries ending up at the Dandora dump site. So it's about 6 a.m. and I'm at the Dandora dumping site. This is a time when trucks carrying food waste from the airport come to dump here. Now, as you can see, it's perfectly fine food that I've managed to collect from this one truck. And as you can see, there's a lot of scrumming going on as they try and find some food bits here and there. So this is just perfectly fine rice. As you can see, clearly a whole pack of uneaten food. Perfectly fine veg and fruit as well. All that ending up right here in this dump site. So I can see some rice in there, some stew. It actually says chicken curry on the packet. Nini Guinea, pocketed sugar. We have these are some toothpicks. Nini ilikuwa?
Ini tissue.
Oh, kulikuwa tissue hapo ndani.
Kuna pilipili na chumvi.
This is salt, pepper. I mean, perfectly fine. I mean, this is something that would have easily been preserved or stored for later use.
Hapa kuna juice ya apple.
This is like almost a half a packet of juice. It's apple juice. This is about a liter of milk, fresh milk. It's unopened. Street families and street kids swarm here daily to scavenge for daily rations of food. There are no mechanisms in place to ensure that surplus food is hygienically and efficiently donated to vulnerable members of society without extra cost to the donor. Therefore, companies and individuals opt for the cheapest and hassle-free alternative, the dump site.
Na feel bado mbaya juu unaweza pata imeletwa na uchafu ingine hapo mbaya. Sasa mimi nataka mulete gari safi.
Sasa unajua hii chakula tunaitumia, lakini kwa vile inakuja ikiwekwa na ghasia mingi. Sasa tunachagua tu sababu hatuna shida na inatusaidia, tunatumia.
So it is estimated that this place receives about 2,000 tons of solid waste on a daily basis, an uncertain amount of which is food waste. So that food is not only ending up in the environment, clearly in a landfill space that we've already ran out of, but it's also breaking down and releasing toxic gases into the environment, such as methane, which is actually 23 times more potent a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Perennial clouds of smoke cover the Dandora dump site due to the phenomenon of landfill fires that ignite themselves.
It is a unique characteristic associated with biodegradable waste. Food, kitchen food, household waste, leaves, fruit peels, all of these put together. Rotting is a kind of substance that undergoes that kind of reaction. Besides, we have the hydrocarbons now, which is the methane, ethane, propane, and butane, which actually fuels the burning of the substance. Once the fire is triggered by the chemical reaction, the fuel that feeds that fire and makes it continue perpetually to burn is the hydrocarbon, which is the methane and ethane gas.
While food waste happens mostly at the consumption stage in the food chain, food loss happens at the production stage. In African countries such as Kenya, it is estimated that 50% of the food grown especially for export is lost, and mainly due to stringent requirements. So today I'm in a farm about 60 kilometers from Nairobi where they grow French beans for export. Today they're doing a bit of harvesting. And the fact is that not all this crop being harvested here today will make it to the pack house, because some of it is either too thin or too bendy or has thrip marks, some of which I can't quite see. And one like this, which doesn't have a head, if it does make it to the pack house, it won't make it past the pack house. All this perfectly fine, edible food will end up rejected and wasted.
Hizi marks ndizo zinauma, hao wadudu wanauma.
Unajua miss easy.
Yeah. Unaona kama hii. Hapa. Sasa wakati ule imeuma, hiyo maharagwe hapo huenda ikabend.
Saka hii ni imebend kwa sababu ya trip.
Imeuma. Unaona imeuma.
Uziende ukaweka maharagwe imejikunja, lazima ikuwe zote straight ziweze pangwa kwa pamoja. Uzienda kuforce maharagwe kwa pamoja ikae hivi straight. Kuna mbegu ni reject. Automatically ni reject. Sana huwa inaendana na requirements ya client.
The imposition of these standards not only impoverishes farmers and leads to massive food losses, but also depletes the soils, water, and other resources used to grow this food, exacting a huge toll on the environment. So now I want to show you where some of this fresh produce ends up.
Hizi ni zile sasa malicha kitu zimebaki. Zile zilikataliwa siende ng'ambo sasa. Kwa hiyo nachukua kama sasa tuseme nachukua mara 4, inakuwa sasa ni tani 4.
All these are rejects. What? Proper food waste. Gone to waste. All this. Imagine. Whichever way we look at it, food waste does not make economic, moral, or environmental sense. What part do you play in all this? So now let's join Dan as he explores this issue further on the Green Talk segment.
Thank you, Esther. In a country where about 3 million people still depend on food aid, Kenya is experiencing massive losses of food in all stages of the supply chain. Over a third of what is grown never actually reaches a human stomach. Today, to help us digest this harsh reality of wastage, we have Dr. Omanga from the Food and Agriculture Organization and Dr. Richard Hunang from the United Nations Environment Program. let's just begin with the controversial situation faced by farmers who are, producing for the export market, especially in Europe. There are quite some very stringent requirements as to how the food should look like. These are mostly cosmetic requirements that are quite harsh on the farmers, which causes quite a lot of wastage. Who comes up with these policies?
The standards are developed by various countries. You find in the European, in Europe, they develop their own standards to be met by the exporters from developing countries. And when we produce here in Kenya for export, we must adhere to their standards.
But with all due respect, Dr. Manga, some of these standards are quite ridiculous.
I think then this is a policy issue and advocacy issue. I think there is need to sensitize the people out there in Europe. Actually, some of them maybe do not know even how a carrot is grown, and we should sensitize them about the processes with the value chain, the process we are going through to come up with that product that we export to them, and to sensitize them that food is not unsafe for human consumption. Mm-hmm. I think that sensitization would be very important on my part.
Dr. Munang, how do we protect our farmers, the local farmers?
First of all, the government have got to recognize that to be able to ensure that a healthy population, which is also good for the workforce of the country, can be done through ensuring incentives are given, especially to the smallholder farmers who at the grassroots levels are actually the custodians and also the engine behind food production in each an African country.
In your own assessment, is there any policy that can help the farmers, especially in terms of value addition and preservation strategies?
Insect pest damage, like when you come to grains, one of the major factors is loss due to insect pest that we have estimated to be around 30-40%. If we can reduce that loss by using appropriate storage facilities at both household level, because most of that loss occurs at household level before even the farmer gets to the market.
To add to what my colleague indicated, the preservation, we should know that most of the ecological-based approaches that have been used about 60 years ago by our grandparents, by our parents, for example, using earth pots to store cocoyams, to store cassava. Those things nowadays, no one is really talking about them. But unless we go back to these things that have been happening in the African continent, they are cost-effective, they're proven to be cost-effective, and they could be upscaled today to other regions. Another example is smoking fish. That's another way of preservation, smoking meat. If that practice, which is actually an ecosystem-based practice, is extrapolated, it could have ripple effects within the continent.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid we'll have to end our discussion there. Thank you very much for being on Green Talk. All right, so stay close because our green hero this week is Joshua Ngundi, a farmer in Seikuru, Mwingi, who has adopted an effective grain storage technology for reducing post-harvest losses. We'll meet him after the break.
Majina yangu ni Joshua Ngundi. Mimi ni mkulima. Niko na chamba sehemu ya Wikivika Irrigation Scheme. Ile mahindi nilipata pale niliweza kuisafirisha mpaka kwa ngala ya ambayo iko nyumbani. Kwenye ile stio tunatumia metal silos. Hizi metal silos tukihifadhi chakula pale inaweza chukua seti ya miaka 5 na iwe imeretain the quality ile mzuri kabisa. Sasa tunataka kuweka hii chakula iko hapa tuanze kuhifadhi. Mwanzo tunahakisha hii mshumaa. Tukihakisha hii mshumaa tunaweka ndani. Tukiingiza huko ndani kabisa, tunahakisha imelala mzuri. Sasa tunafunika huku mwanzo kabisa na tunahakikisha tumefunika vizuri. Kwa hivyo tunafunika hivi. Tukifunika tunaifunga vizuri. Tunahakikisha tumeifunga vizuri sana kama vile sasa nafunga. Ya kuhakikisha hakuna upepo utaingia ndani. Tunaipatia muda wa dakika 15 mpaka dakika 20. Alafu tunatoa mchumaa na tunafunika tena tight. Alafu sasa ndio tunafungua na kuanza kuweka chakula. Hiyo chakula tukiweka atuweki alafu tuende tungoje ingine kuliko nje ikuje. Huwa tunajaribu kuweka continuous. Ndio to do away with that possibility ya hewa ingine ingie huko ndani ambayo inaweza kusaidia hawa wadudu kupumua. Nimeweka ngunia kama 3 kwa hizi metal silos. Nitaiweka mpaka bei ambayo iko kwa sokoni hivi sasa, ikiwa bei mzuri nitaweza kuuza. Huu mradi mimi nimefaidika kwa sababu mbali na wale members ambao ni wa huu mradi, kuna wakulima kutoka nje wameanza kuhifadhi chakula hapa, na kuna wale malipo kidogo huwa wanalipa juu ya kuwa wametumia store yetu kuhifadhi chakula, na huyo malipo kidogo tunatumia kuna kitu kama definite tuseme hivi. Kabla hatujaletwe metal silos, tulikuwa tukitumia mifuko hizi bags sasa hizo, lakini ngunia hizo zilikuwa zinaenda tu muda mchache, alafu inaanza katika ile chakula iko huko ndani inamwangika. By the end of the day we lose something. Pia store yetu si kubwa vile, kwa hivyo tukitumia hizo mifuko pia ilikuwa inachukua nafasi kubwa ya store yetu. Na wakati tulipoanza kutumia hizi metal silos, tumeona kwa nafasi kidogo tunaweka chakula mingi, kwa sababu kama zile metal silo tuko nazo siko na capacity ya more than 600 kg. Kwa hivyo tukitumia moja hivi tu na inachukua nafasi kidogo, tunaweka ngunia za 90 kg zaidi ya 6. Mimi nimefaidika sana na huu mradi. Familia yangu iko na chakula ya kutosha, ambayo ni chakula safi, haina shida yote ile. Kama shida ya aflatoxin, wanakula chakula ambayo ni mzuri.
With statistics like that of 10 million people suffering from food shortage, and we've seen a lot of times when we've had people dying of hunger in Kenya, it's a very sad state of affairs. We just need to learn how to conserve things, you know. It's a behavior change, but we need to learn how it should be part of the way of living. In building a nation, we always have individual parts to play. We shouldn't always point fingers and say, you know, government policies, issues. No, what are you yourself doing as a Kenyan to reduce a problem that is facing the country? So it's important to all Kenyans to learn not to waste their food, to learn how to take what you can eat and not throw away a lot of food out there, and make it go out to waste, go into garbage, decompose and stuff like that, while our brothers and sisters are suffering from hunger. So let's all be part of this change and not waste food in our day-to-day lives.
Hi, my name is Angie. Many times I find that when I have prepared a good meal and I have eaten, I have some leftovers. And today I would like to be helped to know how I can combine these foods and be able to recycle them and make an exciting meal out of them so that I don't have to waste the food.
From your question, I would like to show you how to make a simple meal for two using leftover. We are going to start with the pumpkin. We are going to cut it into small pieces. Then we are going to boil it. As the pumpkin is boiling, we will take our leftover githeri. We are going to rinse it off. Just rinse it with cold water. Then we strain it. Because we want to do a salad with it. We are going to strain it and then we are going to season it afresh. Then you take an onion, put it in our githeri. Also peel the orange, cut the bottom, cut the top. Since it is a citrus fruit, it will kill all the germs that are there from the githeri because the githeri is leftover. So you find that depending on how it was prepared, bacteria always grows. So you can use either an orange or a lemon, but an orange tastes much better. Then with your knife, take your githeri and you remove the segments of the orange. So it will give your githeri salad a very nice taste. Then we take our semi-spoiled tomatoes. We are going to use it as the seasoning for our pumpkin. We'll put a bit of the tomatoes into the pumpkin so that it gives it an acidity. We are going to remove the pumpkin. We're going to run it through a cold water. Mix up your salad. So we can serve it, put it in a bowl. So please, before you throw away food, look in your house what you have and what you can use. Because you'll find that almost 98% of what you have will turn into a meal without having to incur an extra cost.
Well, that's it from us tonight. Until next time, remember, you too have a part to play in all this. Do not waste food. Clear your plate. See you next week on Project Green.
Here I have a pudding. I have a milk, a full milk.
It's a whole bottle of unopened, so that's a whole, it's a bottle of unopened milk, an unopened bottle of milk. Ini mnadu.
Natuanisha hizi vitu.
Nini hizo?
Hizi krima. Na sukari. Hizi. Na natuanisha nazo chai. Napika nayo chai.
Hii itatosha watu ni wote.
Itatosha.
Hapa mnapata kila kitu yote mnahitaji kutengeneza breko.
Hadi mkate iko pale.
Over a third of what is grown never actually reaches a human stomach. Today, to help us digest this high... Sorry guys.
I'll ask you one more thing.
Okay.
Maybe you can see just 2 lines of your favorite song.
No. I'm not going to sing songs here. No. How am I singing songs in this episode? No way, no. I'm not singing.